the online profile building fair. I believe this is the first time that some event like this is happening in the country, and I'm so thrilled to see the response that all of you have given to my team and I, and it's unbelievable, the thousands of students that have shown up and the hundreds that have registered for every session. So it's kind of overwhelming. So I know that I'm speaking to a full house today. I know that the event is also broadcasting live on YouTube. So welcome to all of those who could not join us in the Zoom call, but are watching this from YouTube. I want to let you know that even if there are people out there who could not attend the session but are interested in watching a video, it will be available later on our social media. So if you go to the Next Genius YouTube channel and Instagram pages, you should be able to see a copy of the talk from today. So I want to start by saying a very big thank you to all of you. I also want to applaud the entire Next Genius team for the outreach that they have done and for the quick speed with which they have converted the idea which I had a few weeks ago into reality. So hats off to all of you. Brilliant job. And thank you to all the school counselors out there for sharing about this online profile building fair. I hope over the course of the next 3 days, many of you will get opportunities to attend multiple sessions that are in alignment with your real self, and you're able to connect with either those opportunities or similar opportunities as you present your best foot forward in the college application process. So having said that, I thought I should present a story to you. I personally love listening to stories and telling stories, and I thought instead of giving some boring talk or a lecture, I thought, let me have some fun here and let me present a story. So I have late last evening, I prepared a little presentation by way of telling a story here. So let me begin sharing my screen. I hope it is visible to everybody. I think if there's any problems, great, Devesh, thank you. So, and before I embark on this story, I want to invite all of you to ask any questions at any point of time. I will try to answer as many of them as possible, but my only request is that I will do it at the end of the story. So feel free to ask questions at any time by pasting it in the Q&A box, but I will try to answer them right at the end. So having said that, let us begin. Now, imagine we are starting a top global university, which is imparting knowledge, education, wisdom for the 21st century. Okay, we are going forward in our life. We are going forward into the 21st century. We need a modern university here in India, and we are looking to build something great that is going to come for the next 1,000 years. So you and I are doing this. We want to build a great institution. Great institutions are built on great foundations. And we are looking for the best of teachers. We are looking for the best of facilities. We are looking to build this fantastic spirit and a culture at this college. And before we know it, we start asking ourselves this question, this very simple question, that a college is only as great as the student it admits. So on what basis are we going to admit these great students? So as trustees on the board of this university, you and I are sitting down, scratching our head, and then we put an ad out in the newspapers and online, and we say, hey, we are looking for help with this. We are looking to recruit somebody who is going to head admissions at our 21st century university here in India. And applications pour in. We finally shortlist 3 very interesting candidates. We invite them for an interview. The 3 candidates are called Mr. Academic, Mr. Professional, and Miss Holistic. Mr. Academic has a background of another Indian college. So this is a gentleman who was working at another college in India and has decades of experience under his belt. Mr. Professional has been working abroad, and he has experience of working in admissions in Europe, which is UK, mainland Europe, as well as Canada. And Miss Holistic comes to us from the United States. Okay, so let's begin our interview of our three Vice President of Admissions. The first person into the room is Mr. Academic. So he is the classic, and the gist of our interview with him is that he only cares about academic merit. So when we ask him, hey, Mr. Academic, who should we select and invite into our university, he says, look for the best, look for the brightest. When we ask him, can you define that? Can you help us shortlist? On what basis? He says, you should be looking at school grades. You should be looking at a rank on a standardized entrance exam of some kind. And for those students who perform in the absolute top percentiles of their school or of the entrance exam, they are the ones we should be taking in. And for some subjects where academic scores don't matter that much, artistic, architecture, music, dancing, acting, filmmaking, for example, we should ask students to submit a portfolio. Because of his classic background in India and decades of experience, he has seen this work, and he says that only the kids who have great scores are worthy of coming into our institution. So he likes to keep things simple. He likes to draw a line in the sand, and if you're above the line, you're in. If you're below the line, you're not in. As simple as that. But that sounds rather orthodox, conventional, perhaps even outdated for the 21st century. So, and we are not completely satisfied with it. So we then invite Mr. Oh, that's a typo, Mr. Professional. I told you I made this last night. We invite Mr. Professional for an interview. And we interview him, and the gist of his message is, I don't just care about academics, I care about professional readiness and whether the student who is applying to us aligns with the course that they want to pursue. And he tells us that he would, separate the wheat from the chaff, the good from the bad, in the following ways. He would look at their school grades. Definitely, they're a strong indicator of academic merit. He values it just like Mr. Academic. And he also values the portfolio. And then he says, okay, sometimes there might have to be an entrance exam, depending on the course that you're applying to. He then adds another piece into the application puzzle. He says, I would like these students to write a personal statement that highlights their motivation for what they want to study, why they want to study it, why they believe they are ready, what they are going to do with it once they graduate from our great university. Lastly, he mentions that he's looking for students who have done something, worked or gained some kind of job shadowing in the field that they are proposing to study. So for example, a student comes to us and says, I want to study biology. Mr. Professional tells me that and tells us that we should look whether that student has engaged with a career in biology outside of their school. So he really values this work experience. And lastly, Mr. Professional tells us that he would love to hear from teachers and of biology, for example, at the school where the student is coming from. So he says he presents himself as rather a sophisticated person. Remember, he's got 20 years of work experience in Canada and in Europe, and he definitely seems more impressive than the message that Mr. Academic puts in front of us. Certainly has a complex equation, and that's how he proposes that we should be shortlisting the best of students for our 21st century university. So we think about it, looks interesting. That's how they do it in Europe and Canada. And because we are building this 21st century university, we are considering, does this make sense for us? And then we invite the last candidate, Miss Holistic. Miss Holistic has flown down to India from the US to interview for our great 21st century university. And she tells us in the interview that she cares about 3 factors. The first thing she says is, are they smart? Look for kids who are smart. So just like her predecessors, just like Mr. Professional and Mr. Academic, her message is the same. The kids should do well at school. The kids should do well in any kind of standardized testing. We are looking for smart kids here. But then she goes on to add these new points. The second one she says is, are they cool? And cool is a very broad word, isn't it? So, but she says, I'm going to tell you how we judge cool. So she says, look for students who have an edge, who have that confidence, charisma, attitude, personality, who are dynamic, who look like leaders, you know. So it shouldn't just be book smart, they should be life smart. We are looking for cool kids here. The third thing she says is, you know, if a student is smart and they're cool, they could go to any college. Why should they come to our 21st century great university? And she tells us that we should look for that factor X, that the student in their application should be able to demonstrate to us that they know why they're coming to our college. And it should be a win-win scenario for both of us. She says that, you know, students in her experience who did not look at this factor ultimately ended up in colleges where perhaps the college was a really famous one, but when you ask them later that, you know, did you enjoy it? Are you highly satisfied by your college experience? Did you enjoy learning and studying at this institution? Will you cherish this years and decades from now? They said no. So that's why she said the third thing is very important. We are going to look, if you recruit me, for three things. Is a student smart? Are they cool? And are we right for each other? And that's a two-way street, not a one-way street. So having conducted our interview, we are so impressed with all three, we decide to give another opportunity to Miss Holistic. You know, she has a very kind of holistic or comprehensive message for us, and we are very curious that how are you going to judge this? And she presents us with this simple diagram. She presents us with another parable, which is this hurdle jump race. And she says that at the end of this race is our great 21st century university. And all the students are here. And for those who jump over 1, and those who jump over 2, and those who jump over 3, there is an award waiting. They will get to come to our great 21st century university. So we ask her, hey, what is hurdle number 1? And she reminds us, didn't I tell you in the interview? It's the smart kids. So we say, okay, tell us, how are you going to measure this? So she enlists the following. She says, I'm going to look at the subjects that they chose to study. So for those of you who are studying in the international curriculum, IGCSE A levels, or the IB, AP, you have a great choice, you know, in the subjects that you want to study. And for those of you in the audience today who are studying in the Indian curriculum schools, you also make a choice of streams and to some extent the subjects within those streams. So the first thing that Miss Holistic tells us is we should look closely at the subjects that the students have chosen to study. Second thing she tells us is that we should look not just at year-end marks, for example, at the 10th end or 12th end, we should look at the curve right across 9th to 12th standard and see if that curve is going up or has stayed up, you know, so that reveals how a student has been consistent and motivated in the classroom. She tells us not to look at individual data points, but reminds us to look at the trend, which she says is more important than individual data points. Of course, she's a big proponent of standardized testing and entrance exams. So she says that we are going to do some of that and judge from that. Then she tells us that we are also going to judge how students who are applying to us for that course or that major have gone above and beyond their school curriculum and engaged academically or beyond the classroom, beyond the school with that topic. Again, if you thought that you would study biology, how did you enhance your knowledge of biology beyond the portion or the curriculum or the opportunities that your school presented? So she tells us that she's going to be looking at this factor. Of course, she wants to hear from the school teachers, and she would like to have recommendation from the biology, chemistry, math teacher. Lastly, she tells us for the students who are artistic in nature, who are not strongly academic in the STEM or humanities or business, but who are more artistic uh, performers in fine arts, for example. She wants to see a portfolio, she wants to see a resume, she wants to hear from those teachers. So a student who does well in all of those, either academic or artistic or both, if a student really has those multiple intelligences, they would jump over hope number one, hurdle number one for Miss Holistic. The second mystery factor, which we are holding our breath and waiting to listen to her, is, are they cool? Because both of us are sitting there at the high table and scratching our head and thinking, how are you going to define cool? That's such a broad word. And she says, I'm going to look for traits of leadership in the student. I'm going to look for traits of team play, of community engagement in these students. She tells us that I'm going to look for intelligent and different talents, unique talents that they possess outside of what they intend to study. So, for example, a student might tell me that they are a biologist, but then she says, no person is just biology. They are also an artist, for example, or they might be a musician, or they might be an avid sports person, for example. So she reminds us that to define cool, and cool for her is somebody who is going to make the college campus, our 21st century university campus, a very exciting place to be. Cool is somebody, who's definitely got the brains in the classroom, but who's got the bronze on campus and is also going to make us proud in the future as an alumni. They are going to be a great roommate, for example, to their roommate. They are going to be a great Samaritan on campus. They are going to help people. They're going to participate in things. They're going to start things. They are going to nurture things. And when I say things, it could be anything from sport to a club to a society to literally anything under your nose. And we ask her, Miss Holistic, how are you going to judge all of this? So she says, I'm going to look at their profile. I'm going to look at their resume. I'm going to ask them and assess the things that the students have done outside of studies, whether it is at school or it's outside of school, whether it's in the evenings or weekends or winter break, summer break, does not matter. I'm interested in things that the students have done, have pursued, have spent their time, effort, money, energy pursuing outside of studies. So that's what she means when she says profile. She also tells us that she's going to ask them specific essays. She's going to look for recommendation letters beyond the school. And she proposes that we interview the shortlisted students. So she says, by a combination of looking at those things, I will know and my team will know whether that applicant is cool or not. And lastly, she says that once a student has jumped the first two hurdles, they are truly an outstanding student and they deserve to get into multiple universities, let alone our great 21st century university. And she says that at this point, the students will have multiple options. They would have applied to us, they would have applied to maybe 10, 15 other colleges. We have to be extra careful now. Will they come to us if they are truly smart and cool, or go to our main competitor, that uber cool 21st century university that maybe is there in Singapore or America or London or somewhere else in the world? At that point, she says that we have to assess, through assessing the student in more essays, interviews, and their recommendation, whether they are really keen to come to us. Do they even know why they are really wanting to come to us and not to somebody else? Are we a good win-win scenario for each other? So that, in a nutshell, is how the mind of Miss Holistic works. That is very much a parable for her history and how she's suggesting we run this 21st century university here in India. All right. Now, it's 4:19. I believe I have presented everything in a very interesting manner. And I'm now going to switch gears. I'm going to stop talking in parables and I'm going to start talking about things that I have seen in my last 20 years of doing this. I have seen students pursue. So I have seen students attend interesting summer schools where they thought, maybe I'll go to a university abroad, or maybe I'll go to a college campus here in India in the summertime when school is not on, and I might pursue a new topic. I might go there and see what life is really like in college. Maybe I want to pursue a topic that I'm not getting a chance to study here in school, or it's a more advanced level within the subject that I'm interested in. So that's a very common thing that many people do. They go to summer schools, they go to summer camps. That's the first one. Satisfies our Miss Holistic. The second thing I have seen students do, and this is in no particular order, by the way, I'm just going from top to bottom, is I have seen students ask very interesting questions. Questions that don't have simple answers available on Google and the internet, and where students have had to go out there and perhaps interview people or collect data or analyze data, and in a very scientific method try to research and understand trends and set up experiments and try to come to some interesting conclusions towards the question that they have answered. Now, I've seen students do this by themselves. I've seen students do this with their teachers. I've seen students do this with university professors, industry professionals here in India and abroad. So it goes on to show how their academic mind works, and it goes on to show that they are ready for university level thinking, beyond high school level thinking. Another thing that I have seen students do when it comes to profile building is they talk about a certain personal commitment that they have. And obviously, many a times people say, hey, you know, I took care of my grandmother and she was really ailing with something and she was struggling. I had to spend a lot of time. Can you really write that in a profile, even though I spent 20 or 30 hours a week seriously doing that? And I would say yes. If you have any interesting personal commitments towards your family, towards your parents, your siblings, etc., please talk about it in your application. I don't think people talk enough about this. Okay, so that's another one. The next thing is, and this is a very popular one, it's talking about internships. Now, unlike the West, where organizations offer internships to high school students in a very structured manner, in India, I have not really seen a high school level dedicated offering from corporations and startups and organizations. We are just at the cusp of this. This is just starting. And typically internships happen either with family members or friends of the family or friends of friends, etc., where you go, you job shadow. Because, you know, at the end of the day, people in serious organizations are also slightly concerned about somebody who's 14, 15, 16, 18 years old coming into their office and into their organization. They're always a little skeptical about what you can actually deliver and how you're going to behave. But internships, I have seen very frequently, are a great way to build your profile, especially when they are genuine. A lot of people make this stuff up, you know, just because dad knows somebody or mom knows somebody, and it shows in the application that there is no depth. So I would say to you that, you know, be genuine in your pursuit, go learn something interesting, think beyond your school. An internship is a great sneak peek into the world of adults. Use this as an opportunity to not just learn something interesting, use it as an opportunity to think that, do you really want to be doing something like this? Does this culture, what these guys are thinking and doing and envisioning, does it really align with you or not? Use it genuinely as an experience to enrich you and let it look good in your application, all right? Of course, artistic and cultural pursuits are very common. We see students doing all kinds of things, whether it is fine arts, photography, filmmaking, acting, singing, playing music, any other kind of artistic or cultural exposition that you would like to pursue. Please go for it. Please excel at it. You don't necessarily need to have won competitions, or you don't necessarily need to have performed at very large audiences, etc. As long as you can put a nice portfolio, which is a collection of how you pursued that art, you might be able to put it together in a PDF or a video file, and you could share that with your college, you know, and the college will definitely value that. Even, for example, like our hypothetical student who's going to study biology, maybe loves watercolors and put together a collection of her paintings and submit it to the college. Remember, Miss Holistic said, I'm interested in other talents. So that could be a very interesting one for our hypothetical student. Athletics, everything I have said for artistic pursuit is ditto for athletics. So please pursue, rather than too many sports, I would say focus and get it together for maybe 1, 2, or 3 sports, not more than that. I know the students who are very athletic, they love to play all the games. I would encourage you to excel rather than go very broad when it comes to athletics. I have even seen students start their own businesses and start their own companies and start their own organizations, whether they are for-profit or not-for-profit, or an organization that is focused towards social change. Everything from an interesting sort of media channel to a radio channel to a company that sells ice cream to starting an NGO. I mean, the world is your oyster. You have an idea, you have a solution, you have innovated something interesting, you think you can fix a problem, you're entrepreneurial in nature, go for it, all right? Please, there is nothing in any rule book which says that you can only start a company if you're a graduate of college X. I have seen entrepreneurs very, very young, single digit age. So if you believe this is you, please go ahead and start your own company or your organization. Always looks great in your profile. And be ready to demonstrate what you have achieved. And very honestly, most startups fail. Nothing wrong with that. It's a great learning experience. And if you have failed, then talk about your learnings. Most of the successful entrepreneurs of the world failed in their first couple of attempts, all right? So there's no shame there. It's a great learning experience. Whether successful or failure, speak positively about it. All right. The next one I've seen students do is attend industry conferences. Again, let's go back to our hypothetical example of the girl who wanted to study biology. And last year she got a chance to attend a conference of microbiology. And even though she was just a 10th standard student, she got a chance as a visitor or a student attendee. She attended that conference. She had exposure to very, very higher order thinking. 90% of what was being spoken about in that conference or that fair, she did not technically understand. 10% she had some idea of what was going on. But guess what? That 10% was also enough. It really expanded her mindset and perspective, really gave her exposure to where that field is going and who the stalwarts of that field are, and gave her really good insights into how she should be shaping her and nurturing her interest in biology, both at college and beyond. So things like this also look very good. For those of you who have been lucky enough either to host a student from another part of the country or another part of the world and travel yourself as an exchange student to another region, will know that being a student exchange student is a very interesting cultural experience and a very interesting experience in personal growth. You, as teenagers, look at your own life, and obviously you live in a bubble because you're at home and you go to school and you go out with your friends, etc. But you haven't really gone out and looked at the world from the eyes of other people, strangers. And that is what happens when you go on an exchange and when you go to another country and you live at the home of a student whose family is so different from you, they live differently from you, their priorities, values, language, food, living style, everything is different. And it kind of makes you think, wow, life can be different. And what I thought was right may not necessarily always be the only way. And definitely it expands your mindset, your perspective, and perhaps makes it ready to accept the diversity that exists in this world, right? So colleges value that. Colleges value that cultural quotient and cultural maturity. So exchange student, great, great experience. School leadership, obviously not everybody can do it. I would love to see all students lead at school in some way or the other, but it's logistically difficult. But for those of you who can go for leadership roles in your council, sports captain, house captain, head of MUN, head of a club, etc., etc. Please demonstrate that. Colleges, the best colleges around the world are looking for students who have been in a leadership role, strong leadership role at their high school, okay? Skill building, such a broad word, right? I mean, it could be any kind of skill. We could talk about Excel and how good you are at Excel. We could talk about horse riding and how you've been doing it for 8 years. We could talk about whistling. That's right. I had a student last year who was a whistler and an expert whistler and had traveled outside India to give performances. And that's such a unique skill. Anything, okay? Anything that you can imagine, whether related to your subject of choice or it's a unique talent, okay? Even I've had kids who did magic and that was just so much fun because you know what, that would be a great conversation starter at any dinner, or it would be a great icebreaker at any social event that that person would go to, whether they choose to become an engineer or a politician. Doesn't matter, it's still an interesting skill, okay? And who knows how that might connect to what they're going to do later in their life. So excel in a skill, identify some skills that align with you and excel at them. That is what we are looking for. Community engagement, Miss Holistic tells us is so important and I couldn't agree more. Colleges are looking, the great colleges of the world are looking for students who think beyond themselves, who don't think I all the time, who think we, us. And one great way to demonstrate this is to engage with people around you and try to make their life better in some way. Now, the classic examples that come to mind are always helping families and students from low-income background, older people, people with certain diseases or disabilities. But honestly, I would say free your mind and think beyond. You might want to add value to lives of people who are around you, and that could be your mother's friends. It doesn't have to be a population that is ailing in some way, you know. It can be anybody. Colleges are looking to see how you engage with interesting sets of people around you. It does not mean community service. Therefore, I did not write community service. I wrote community engagement, okay? It could be something as interesting as you starting a reading club for people of all ages who are interested in reading books, you know. That's another great way to show that you're engaging with people who are different from you, but live in the same vicinity as you or online and who have a common interest. Okay, so think beyond the I and think about us. Look at a certain population, subset of people and say, I would like to engage with them and do something meaningful. That's community engagement for you in a nutshell. Learning new languages is always very exciting. And we know that students whose minds are shaped differently because from a younger age, they are multilingual. They speak 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 10 languages. The way these people build relationships with others around them on the basis of the fluency in the language of those other people, it's a huge value add to your application, and colleges really love this thing. So maybe you live here in India and maybe you speak English, Hindi, Tamil, your mother tongue, but then you reached out and learned another regional language in India, or you learned a foreign language in India, okay? So that looks good. So the popular ones I have seen are Spanish, French, German. The rarer ones I have seen are Arabic, Russian, Japanese, Chinese. The rarest one that I ever saw a kid speak was Burmese, which I thought was so interesting, all right? So, languages. And the last one is hobbies. So if you have an interesting hobby, please talk about that. Please pursue excellence within that hobby. Simple example that comes to my mind is stamp collection, right? I used to be a stamp collector when I was a kid and had all these massive piles of books, taught me a great deal about geography and the world and so many countries around us, and ultimately focusing on the picture that was presented on the stamp helped me realize that that was important for that country. So a picture of Queen Elizabeth on the stamp of the UK and 20,000 stamps of different colors of Queen Elizabeth fascinated me. Mahatma Gandhi on India, you know, Jomo Kenyatta on Kenya, society, geography, international relations, life through stamps. And that's just its stamps. Now, you might have a different hobby. All I would say is excel in the hobby, really deeply engage with it. So here are some 15, 20 examples of things that I have seen students successfully pursue and successfully go to the top colleges around the world. Okay. Now, my last message for you is, and this is my homework for you, is if you really want to do a good job of building your profile, I would suggest you not to look outside in the world. I would suggest you to look inside. The success, the secret to the success lies within you. The beauty lies within you. And don't look outside and say, hey, I wonder what this college is looking for when they say profile. What are they looking for? What is the world doing? It doesn't matter. What matters is who you are and how you recognize your uniqueness. And that's the beauty of it. You should be honest to yourself. You never can lie to yourself anyways. But in building your profile, focus on what feels right to you. So in order to determine whether to pursue something or not to pursue something, look at it, look at yourself, and honestly ask yourself, does this opportunity really align with me? And when I say me, think about your natural talents and your natural abilities and things that come naturally to you. Think about previous skills that you have developed in certain direction and think, do I really want to, do I love playing the guitar, for example? You know, I really want to excel in it? Go for it, you know, that it feels right. Third, I would say pursue your interests, passions, curiosities. Okay, each and every student I have ever met in my life was curious about something. And I encourage them to pursue that curiosity. So many interesting things came out of it, okay? People have all kinds of curiosities. Be honest and go make a genuine effort in that direction. Guess what? The more unique it is, the more unique your application looks. So because you were true to that voice inside of you, you are now looking successful in college application. Look at your personality, look at your attitude, look at your fears, and then look at the opportunities in front of you and say, does this really align with who I am? Look at your family background and the opportunities that come to you because of that. When you're pursuing something, think carefully. Does this really align with my vision for myself and what I want to do? Does it align with my values? Please go ahead and pursue. If you somewhere hesitate, pause and think carefully before you embark on that journey. Okay? So the secret to doing well in profile building is to look within. There is no magic formula. There is no secret equation to this thing. The reality is look within yourself, excel. I leave you with those two messages, and that is the end of what I wanted to talk about. It is now 4:40, and I think there are many questions that have come in, so let me try to answer those. Okay, so people have asked all sorts of questions. I'm going to try and focus on questions that are related to profile building. So apologies to people who have asked me about academics, etc. Okay, so one question is, do both Mr. Professional and Miss Holistic care about additional knowledge the child has pursued and extra efforts they have taken to acquire that knowledge? Or is it the criteria of interest for only Miss Holistic? I would say that Miss Holistic cares about that more. I said I'm going to speak in parable. So I presented you Mr. Academic. Mr. Professional, and Miss Holistic. Mr. Academic is how we do college admissions here in India. We look at a single factor. Mr. Professional's approach is how they do admissions in the UK, in mainland Europe, in Canada. And Miss Professional is how they do admissions in the US. And this question, the answer is very simple. Only Miss Holistic cares about it. Okay. So somebody's asking me about debating. I would say brilliant. If you enjoy it, please go for it. I have seen students do all kinds of things, from taking part in debate competitions at school, to taking part in Model UN, to a leadership role at school where they are a prefect and have to speak at the assembly or at special events at school. We have somebody who's going to talk about a program called Speech Debate India. So if you're interested in debating, I would encourage you to go to that. We have somebody else who's coming to talk about the Trinity examinations, and that's another great way to demonstrate your love for public speaking. So another question is, does community engagement also mean developing collaboration skills? Absolutely, I love this question. And I would say that when you think about community engagement, think of the 3 C's. So first, communication. Second, collaboration. Third, cooperation. Okay, so when colleges are looking at your application and they're trying to see, are you a solo player or are you a team player? How well do you do either? And doing community engagements, try to demonstrate these 3 C's in your college application. Okay. Okay, another student has already told me about Korean, so very good. Another question is, in skill building, can we talk about cooking? Absolutely, please talk about cooking. I love cooking. You know, if you can demonstrate that you have interesting skill, that you have excelled, you could even build a cooking portfolio. You could get a recommendation letter from somebody where you have been engaging with cooking. You could take part in a competition. You could design your own recipe. Okay, cooking is a great and very popular profile building activity. Rarely do I meet people who tell me, I hate food, I despise food, I don't want to talk about food. Okay, so broadly, 80–90% of humanity will enjoy thinking and living food. Okay. What would be the best way to find an internship opportunity in India? This is a very good question. Okay, I would say that this is a conversation you need to have with the grown-ups around you. Your parents, your uncles and aunts, your neighbors. And you must encourage them to help you find an unofficial, informal internship with an organization or an individual that you are finding yourself attracted to. For example, you might think, hey, maybe, you know, I like math, I like to draw, maybe I'll be an architect, you know. I love thinking about structure and building, but I have no idea what architecture really is because I never studied it at 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. How am I supposed to suddenly one day say, I'm going to be this great famous architect of the world? So I think I'm going to go talk to my dad and ask him if he knows any architects. And so then later that night, I went and spoke to my father and he said, yes, one of his college friends is an architect. So both of us went and decided to go have a conversation with that gentleman. And I presented my case. I brought along a resume. I told them that I was thinking of perhaps pursuing architecture. I asked them for their guidance and advice and asked them about what is the future of this field and asked them to look at me and say, you know, if this is who I am and these are my interests, this is my vision, do you think it aligns with what an architect does? And if, you know, if they said, yes, this all sounds relatively okay, and I would request them that, can I do a work on a small project in your office for some time to watch how you all work, how you approach a project, how you sign a client, how you deliver a design. And if before I come to that internship, is there something that I need to learn? And what will be the outcome of that internship? Would you like me to make a presentation to the office or write a report or etc., etc.? So the message for you is very simple. Look within the network of your parents and family and neighbors and try to structure something interesting. Don't just say, I'm here for an internship and I'm going to sit in this office corner for every day from morning to afternoon and bye-bye. You know, engage with it properly. You will learn something very interesting. So how do you go about starting a company or entrepreneurship during this pandemic? This is a brilliant question. And the reality is like this. It's very simple. You are experiencing an online profile building fair. This is a classic example of entrepreneurship. Whoever said that things can't be done because there is a pandemic? My team and I sat down and said, right, we cannot visit schools, so let the world come to us. You are here today, aren't you? So think out of the box. Entrepreneurs think out of the box. They make things happen. I highly encourage you, if you're an entrepreneur, to look at a problem, come up with a creative solution, and embark on it. All right? Are online summer school courses effective? So I would say that if this is in the current COVID-19 scenario, they definitely cannot be a substitute, right, for the real experience. But if you really see value in the academics they are providing, I would say go ahead and do it. Somebody's asking me about acting. Absolutely. Great profile builder. And I would say that acting, for those of you who are looking to become public speakers, business leaders, performers of any kind, for those of you who envision themselves to lead others, acting skills are very useful. Communication, somebody else is asking about communication skills. Absolutely. Okay, so I can see that now the questions run into the 2 digits. Definitely will not be able to answer all of them in the next 5 minutes. So let me cherry pick. Somebody's asking me whether running a social media page counts for something. Absolutely, it counts for a lot, especially if you've been able to talk about something that is different and something where you have built a sizable number of audience that is engaging with you and you are very active, then definitely a big plus. If it's something you started last minute in grade 12 just because you wanted to put something in your college application, then no. One question is, are achievements earned in grade 8 and below counted? So from the perspective of the highly selective universities around the world, I cannot think of a single one that would look at before grade 8, unless you have something absolutely extraordinary. Recently, I had a student who had a Guinness World Book of Record, and that was done before grade 8, and they wanted to put that in their application. And I said, well, talk about it in the essay. You cannot put it in your resume and your profile, etc. Put it in the essay, okay, or talk about it in the interview. Okay, here is another interesting question. Can playing video games be claimed as a profile activity? So, things like socializing with my friends, watching TV, Netflix, gaming, football, I do this for fun type of thing. Unless you have really excelled in something, unless you have demonstrated merit in some way or the other, no one's going to get really impressed with that, all right? So if you're doing things that everybody else is doing, then a college is not going to give you credit for that. So if you're interested in games, go excel, take part in a competition, build a game, do something interesting with it, rather than just I'm passively playing it for 5 hours a day, every day. So, and I see many kids, particularly STEM students, doing this. You've got to excel, people. The important thing is to engage meaningfully with that activity, and demonstrate excellence. Okay, I'm going to take one last question. The question is it okay to include our side hobby in the portfolio, even if we haven't achieved anything in it? So, I would say that, like I gave the example of the student who wanted to study biology, but was interested in art and drawing. Um, and maybe that student is not going to go to college and study art per se. But don't you think that those artistic skills might come in handy while studying biology? We certainly know that high school students have to draw animals and plants and bacteria, etc. While studying biology between grade 9 to 12. It's only going to intensify when you go to college. So you never know how things are going to be related. You might be talking about cooking as a side hobby, but then you're going into business school and marketing, and suddenly you might realize that the two are coming together and you are selling food, or you are talking about hospitality experience, So you never know how things are going to overlap. If you care about it, if you have excelled at it, definitely put it in your application, all right? And I really apologize to all of you. A, the time is up, and B, I certainly cannot answer all 50 questions here today. I invite you to reach out to the Next Genius Foundation, and we would be happy to work with you. Thank you, Devesh, and the entire team for having me today. I hope this was a useful experience for all of you. It was great speaking with you today, and I wish you all the best as you enjoy the next 3 days, as well as your profile building and college application journey.